Good morning. Today is 25 October, the year 2024. I'm Dr. Dave Thompson, a volunteer at the Palm Springs Air Museum here in Palm Springs, California. As part of the Veterans History Project of the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., we conduct interviews of veterans and civilians who participated in our country's military conflicts, especially World War II. Today, I'm here at the museum along with fellow volunteer Diane Thompson and special guest Claudia D'Agostino. And today we have the honor and the privilege of hearing the story of Natalie Garritano. Natalie was a small 11-year-old girl in 1944 in Italy where she experienced World War II. So we're going to talk to her about that and a lot of other things. Natalie, it's so good to have you here, dear. Okay. Claudia, thanks for bringing her in. Okay. Natalie, when were you born?
Sono nato 1932.
1932, officially December 25th.
Okay, and you were telling me a little something interesting about that.
Yes, she had a twin brother. They were both born. Zio Salvatore, io sono uscito prima o tu?
Prima sono nata io.
Okay, she was born first with her twin brother, and then her twin brother was next.
And what was his name?
His name was Salvatore Garritano, and in those days, depending on I'm not sure if it was the year that you were born or the time, the male that was born would either have to go in the military or not. So her mother and father asked the doctor if he could change the birth certificate by, I'm not sure if it was 6 or 7 days, and then this way her brother Salvatore would not have to do military service, because in those days if you do military service you may not come back. So the parents didn't want him to go to war. And that's the story of, so officially she was born on Christmas Day 1932, but her documents show January 1st 1933. So the brother Salvatore wouldn't have to do military.
Okay. And where were you born, Natalina?
Cosenza, Calabria.
How do you spell that?
Cosenza.
La città.
Yeah, in Italy. In Italy, that's Cosenza. Cosenza.
And that was a town?
That was actually a small city in those days. And from Rome, it's about 5.5 hours south by train.
In Calabria, that's like a state, or
Calabria is a province, one of the provinces of Italy, and so she came from the province of Calabria, but Cosenza is the city where she was.
So it'd be like Palm Springs, California.
Exactly.
Okay. And how big was that little city?
Quante persone tu pensi abitavano là? Come 1000?
Hanno 3 piani.
No. Quante persone nella città di Cosenza?
Non lo so, sono assai. È una città.
I guess she said because it was a city, it was quite a bit of people, but never like Rome or anything like that. It was a smaller city.
Okay. And what was her father's name?
Tuo padre come si chiamava?
Garritano,
Giorgio Garritano.
Okay, and what did he do?
Che faceva tuo padre?
Era polizia.
He was police captain of
Polizia.
not only police captain, but he also was part of a government building where he was the top police guarding the building there.
And that's the town that she was
of Cosenza, Calabria. Yes.
Okay.
Lavorava.
And his answers, I assume they're Italian. I mean, did you ever try and trace back way back?
I did on her mother's side, and her mother's mother was from Spain, and then on my dad's side, his father's father was from Germany, so we have German and Spanish blood in our family, which was interesting to learn.
Yeah, really. And what was her mother's name?
Tua mamma come si chiamava?
Elvira Fiorito.
Elvira Fiorito as her maiden name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fiorito.
And where did she grow up, or how did they
Lei
meet?
era Lapano era nato?
Come?
Tua mamma era nata a Lapana?
Sì, a Lapano.
Lapano
Ero paese.
is a small town outside of Cosenza, outside of the city, going towards the Montagne or no?
Molti anni.
Yeah, it's kind of towards the foothills,
Sai.
but outside of Cosenza, excuse me, out of the city.
And what did her mother's father do? What kind of work did her grandmother? I
No,
guess?
tuo nonno, il padre di tua mamma che
Non mi
faceva.
ricordo, non l'ho visto quando sono nata.
Oh, she never got to see him.
No.
And
No,
did
no,
not
no.
know.
Didn't know
Didn't
anything about
know.
it. Okay.
No.
And does Natalina, do you have any brothers and sisters?
Quando fratelli, quando sorelle?
C'aveva quando- 4 sorelle
Four-
e 2 fratelli,
Four,
prima di me,
4 sisters and,
e 2 fratelli.
and 2, no, ma erano 12.
No, ma sono nati dopo di me.
No, ma tutti il totale, il total.
12.
It was 12 together. Quando sorelle, quando fratelli?
6 e
Six.
6.
Also, 6 male and 6 female. Interesting.
Can she recite their names?
Tu ti ricordi i nomi, come si chiamava?
Cesira,
Cesira was your older sister.
a prima.
The first sister, Cesira.
L'altra si chiamava, come si chiama? Rita. No,
Elia.
si chiama Rina,
Oh, Rina. Rina was the
la
second.
seconda.
Okay.
E dopo si chiamava Amalia,
Amalia,
e la terza
the third.
Carmelina,
Carmelina,
e mio fratello Antonio e
Antonio.
Giovanni.
Antonio was next in line, and then Antonio, and
E
then
Giovanni.
and Giovanni. Giovanni was the tenor,
Yeah.
the singer.
E l'altro, quello il gemello,
Then Salvatore was her
Salvatore.
twin,
il gemello. Sì.
and then
E l'altro si chiamava Umberto, no, Franco,
Frank,
yeah,
her brother Frank,
e Salvatore, e si
Salvatore,
chiamava Umberto e
Umberto,
Mario.
And
Maria,
oh Maria,
Mario,
and then Mario.
l'ultima.
But one of them died of
A
the
Chicago
mumps.
sono morti.
No, chi è morto della mumps in Italia.
Oh, il fratello, come si chiama? Umberto.
Umberto died of the
Mumps.
measles or mumps?
Sì. Qui morbillo.
The red marks.
Oh, measles.
Measles.
E la sorella è morta con la bronchite.
And her sister died of bronchitis.
Un anno aveva.
Come si chiamava? Rita?
Sì, Maria.
Maria. She died in those days.
Yeah.
Way back.
Yeah.
Are any of them still alive?
Non ci sta nessuno che vive più.
Come? No, sono tutti morti.
Yeah, they're all passed away.
Oh, they-
The last one was
5 sorelle, 6
quando-
fratelli.
yeah, 5 sisters and of course 6
Giusto io sono
brothers.
rimasta l'ultima.
She's the survivor.
Yeah.
Our last brother was Uncle John.
Un anno fa.
Or the tenor passed away
Oh.
like
Yeah,
4 months
a
ago.
Chicago.
5 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he sing it in Italy or what?
Well, he sang in the United States, and
Oh.
he used to sing at weddings, and and then after that he was traveling a lot. So his first wife says, "You're going to either stop, or you know." So he stopped singing, but they ended up getting divorced. Then he got remarried, and then they opened up a curtain factory where they made curtains, kind of like you see in like the Royal Palace, the real fancy ones.
Were any of the children, were any of them old enough to serve in World War II?
I tuoi fratelli, qualcuno andava in della guerra o no? I
No.
fratelli? No.
No,
And their
nessuno.
father, did
Erano
he?
tutti impiegati.
Tuo padre è andato in della guerra?
No.
No,
Oh,
he
no.
didn't serve in the military.
Giusto, come si chiama? Un cugino.
Oh, a cousin, she does have a cousin that went into the
E
military.
mio nipote,
and her nephew
Yeah,
went
yeah.
into the military.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Italian.
So
In Italy. In Italy.
In
right.
Italy.
Yeah, in the Italian army.
Yeah.
Yes, in the Italian army.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they survived.
E mio cognato,
They survived,
e mio
yes.
cognato era un generale.
And her brother-in-law was a general.
Really?
A general.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Era,
okay.
era capitano artiglieria. Era
He was the
appassionato.
top of the general for artillery.
Artillery.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She has some pictures we'll have to show you sometime.
Abitava a Roma.
And he lived in Rome.
Yeah.
Lived in Rome.
Yeah.
Come mia sorella, abitava a Roma.
And her sister also lived in Rome.
So she was about in the middle of all the kids.
I would say she tu era in centro quasi della
Sì.
famiglia. Yeah, her and her twin brother were in the middle of the family.
Okay. And so what did the children do for fun when they were growing up?
Quando tu eri cresciuta, quando erano piccoli, che facevano per divertimento, diciamo?
No, erano tutti impiegati. Mia mamma cuciva la macchina.
No, ho domandato quando voi siete bambini in Italia, diciamo a crescere, che facete per divertimento? come
Niente,
fuori?
stavamo sopra a casa. No,
Sopra?
niente.
Well, in those days, they were more. The parents would teach them how to do things, so their activity, like playing soccer,
Io
it
ricamavo.
was very minimum. The girls would learn, like she would do embroidery work, and then che facevano gli uomini?
Niente, no.
No, they.
Uno era boxer.
Oh, one of her brothers was practicing boxing.
E
Boxing.
l'altro è impiegato all'ufficio.
Ok, ma adesso mamma che era dopo, quando erano small.
No, stavano a casa.
They were home, and I guess the father was
Yeah.
teaching them how to do things. I guess.
Was there any movie theaters around? Did they get to go
Ci
to
stavano i
movies?
teatri do film? Per guardare i film, i teatri?
No.
No.
Did not go
No.
to And were they very religious? Did they go to church a lot?
Andava alla chiesa ogni domenica perché
Sì.
voi siete cattolici? Yes.
Sì.
Very Catholic, Roman Catholic.
What was the name of
Mia
her
mamma.
parish?
Tu ti ricordi il nome della chiesa?
No.
Oh, she can't
Non
remember.
Can't remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did she go to? Was the school a Catholic school? Did
La
she go
scuola dove andavi era cattolica? O?
Sì.
Yes, it was
Sì,
Catholic.
to?
Uh-huh.
With nuns and
Catholic.
Qui
priests?
monachi?
Sì, sarà come.
Yeah, it had nuns teaching.
Did she remember any of her favorite teachers? Any of
Tu
her
ti
favorite
ricordi
nuns?
i nomi di qualche maestri?
No, non mi ricordo.
She can't
Tanti anni.
remember.
Yeah.
Perché sono andata a poco a scuola io.
She went to school for very little time.
Yeah, not-
then the
no,
war
assai.
hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And did the kids, did they have odd jobs? Or when they were kids, did they have, I don't know, like paper rounds?
Yeah,
or
quando erano
work in-
piccoli
work
tuo
room?
padre chi le faceva fare i maschi? Andavano a giocare a pallone o andavano a portare i giornali alle case? Che facevano?
No, stavano a casa.
They were very. The father was very strict, so they stayed home. I guess.
Privati stavano.
More
But-
private and.
So, but he made enough money to raise them all.
Yes, yeah.
E dopo sono fatti grandi e ho andato a lavorare.
Then later, when they went to do studying, they had good positions.
Andavano a lavorare.
Yeah, they went
all'ufficio.
to work in offices and
Oh, yeah.
post office and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, does she remember anything about September 1st, 1939, when the war really started, when the Germans went into Poland?
Tu ti ricordi allo 39 a settembre quando cominciava la guerra? Tu ti ricordi se sentivi cose per la radio o ti stavano
Sentivo
preparando?
parlare le persone e mio padre parlava pure.
So her father would tell her that things are starting, the war's starting, and they would hear the radio. Excuse me. They would hear the radio, but mostly the father was preparing the family that a war is coming, So that's how they knew, the kids.
Right. And in Italy there were kind of different factions, communists, fascists, etc.
Right.
Like that. Now, her
Right.
father in that position he had, did he have to kind of not take sides, let's put it that way?
Che lì tempo, visto quando ci stava, come si chiama, Mussolini, il tuo padre andava verso così era più privato, era più forte, come pensava andare verso Mussolini, o era più indipendente quando pensava a cucire il
No, era
bello?
privato.
He was more independent, where he would think he had his own mind,
Yeah.
making his own decisions. And I do remember that she was telling me he was always to help Italy, to protect Italy.
Yeah.
Always, yeah.
Right. Did you ever meet him?
I don't remember. Non l'ho mai incontrato. I don't think
Okay.
so. O tuo padre?
No.
No, I was too young. I was like quando anni, no, baby.
È morto a 70 anni.
He died at 70 years old. Che anno, do you recall the year?
Non mi ricordo.
No, I just met her mother, but not her father, my grandfather.
Yeah.
Yeah, he died.
So what did she remember? I mean, we let's say when it first started and up until say 1940. Let's talk about before. What we'll really talk about. What did she remember about that? Did she see Italian soldiers, German soldiers, or what?
Yeah,
What was
quando
around?
stava a cominciare la guerra, diciamo, che ti ricordi prima dei bombardamenti, che ti ricordi che stava a cominciare, che tu potevi guardare di finestre, che vedevi soldati italiani, che vedevi soldati americani, che vedevi prima?
No, vedevo i soldati, mi ricordo.
Ma erano italiani o americani?
Mischiati.
She would see
americani.
both. She would see both
Yeah.
military, the Italians and the Americans.
Later, but no Germans.
E germanesi pure.
Pure i germanesi?
Sì, sono
Tu-
cominciati a
Tu
venire.
hai visto i germanesi pure?
No, mi ricordo.
She said that she also remembers seeing Germans later.
Yeah, I would think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, well, I mean, later on, then when the Italians kind of got out of the war, then the Germans, I think, came in.
Took over, yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Did any of them give her family any problems?
I germanesi disturbavano la vostra famiglia, come andavano al palazzo, disturbavano?
Io disturbavano, avevano paura i miei parenti perché se nascondevano e no,
Ma come facevano? Venivano ai palazzi a bussare, che volevano?
volevano solo che volevano soldi, volevano loro, volevano qualche
So
cosa.
she remembers that the Germans would go there and request gold from the families, like
Yeah.
gold and money.
Yeah, me
Gold and money, and since the families were afraid, ce li davano questi cose?
Oh, se no,
So they would
se
give
leva.
up. They said, if you don't give up the gold, we'll kill you. So she remembers that families, because they're all in fear, they just gave over whatever they had.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's too bad. Well, let's I'll go up to, there was 1944. By this time, the Americans were getting pretty close, I guess. The American soldiers were starting to be in the
Right.
area, but the
Oh, no.
Germans were still bombing
Uh-huh.
the towns. Is
Right.
that correct?
Yeah, io stavo domandando, dopo cominciavano a bombardare i germanesi.
I
E
germani
tu
mi
ti
ricordo.
ricordi? E che ti ricordi quando
Vedevo
facevano?
l'aereo sopra io,
She remembers that the planes,
cascavano i bombe.
the German
No,
planes
prima,
would go
prima
by.
suonavano i sereni.
The sirens. The first thing you would hear are the sirens warning the citizens that the Germans are coming.
E scivamo giù sul terzo piano.
And everybody would run out of the buildings.
Okay, so was she living in a house or an apartment, or what was that?
Those were, I guess they were kind of like condominiums, but tre piani,
Tre piani.
3 floors,
Okay.
and the buildings were quite large, quite large.
More
Quite-
than one family in a building?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Quando famiglie in un palazzo, diciamo, tuo palazzo.
Erano assai.
Yeah.
Perché il palazzo era grande.
I'm going to guesstimate, let's see, because I know how big the building is. It's, I'm going to guesstimate like 30 families, maybe.
Yeah.
20
Sicuro.
20 to 30 families for
Yeah.
sure.
Sicuro.
Yeah, so they're quite big.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
mi ricordo.
so there was one date that we want to talk about.
Sure.
So when was that? What was that date?
E tu ti ricordi la data quando proprio quel giorno che avete scappato, quando ha bombardato? O tu ti ricordi un mese, un giorno,
No, se mi
un
ricordo
anno?
era gennaio, no? Gennaio-febbraio.
She thinks it may have been January, February, but she's not
okay.
sure.
Okay, so what happened that day?
Quello giorno che è successo, quando ti ricordi, quando avete scappato dal palazzo, avete sentito i primi sirene?
No, siamo scappati e dopo ho visto le bombe che scendevano e io gridavo, sono le caramelle che cascano. No. Gridavamo e scappavamo e non ho visto una famiglia, nessuno. Le famiglie tutte divise da una parte all'altra. No,
I'm sorry.
mi ricordo. Yeah.
So she remembers seeing the planes, but she would hear the sirens first, and then they could see the planes, the German planes, and that all the families had to run out. But she said that everybody got scattered, so in the back of her mind, she didn't know where her brothers or sister or mother or father went. And the kids would always call the bombs the candies. They're dropping the candies again. They would call them candies, but they knew they were bombs. And then she just ran, with her brothers and her family. But she does remember that everybody got scattered because everybody was in fear. They didn't all go like in a lineup. They all just went all different directions.
Now, had that happened prior to this, or was this the first bombing shoot?
Quando volta avete uscito dal palazzo, questa era la prima volta? O
No.
è successo tante volte?
Tante volte è successo.
She said it happened
Non
quite
solo una
often, quite often.
Sì, non solo una volta.
So it's quite often, and then they would, dopo avete tutti insieme un'altra volta? Come si
Dopo
dice?
siamo uniti. dopo
Yeah,
tante
every time
volte.
they would do it, then
Quando è
eventually,
calmata la guerra, no?
when things would calm down, where they didn't hear no more sirens, and they'd all go back to their homes. Yeah, of course, if they weren't bombed.
Yeah. Was there any bombings that were close to her house prior to that day?
Prima di quel giorno che è successo, quando ti hanno salvato, tu sentivi ancora altri giorni che ci stavano i bombe vicino alla casa tua?
No,
No.
No,
She's
no.
saying the other times era più lontano allora.
sì.
The other bombings were more far away.
But they always ran out. They didn't. It wasn't like, oh, here we go again, and nothing's ever happened, and why?
Un giorno che è successo, in tuo cervello tu non è che hai pensato, oh, un'altra volta stanno a fare i sireni, tu sapevi che erano
No.
più gravi, no?
No, giusto, hai visto il soldato che mi ha preso? Tutta per la mano? No, aspettavo la famiglia.
Okay. Yeah, she's saying that she just keeps on remembering the day that the army guy saved her.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's.
Yeah.
Okay. So she's running out, and everybody's scattered, and then what happens?
Dopo che tutti sono andati da tutte le parti, ha detto che è successo quando prima che ti ha salvato quello soldato, che tu stavi vicino a quello palazzo che ha bombardato.
Io stavo vicino lì, aspettavo la famiglia, no, tutti i parenti, no, quando... No, e dopo aspettavamo che ci potevano da mangiare, e ci andavamo a prendere erba.
No, ma ha detto quando è successo tu bombardato, lo sapevi che un giorno tu stavi vicino a quello palazzo che si è rovinato e dopo è andata la roba sopra
Hanno
te.
fermato, dopo non sentivo.
Yeah, she's saying when the bombings hit, then she was near that building that got bombed and the debris again went over her, and then she remembers that the soldier took her out by her hand and took her out.
So okay. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like she runs out. Everybody kind of scatters, and then I
Right.
guess it was not her building, but the building next
Next
to
to
it
her.
that got hit.
The
So
building
she's
next to
running
her.
by it, or she's by
Correct.
it, and it
Yeah.
tumbles down, a lot of it on her.
Right.
And then there's an American GI in the area and sees what's happened
Yes.
and comes over and digs
Yeah.
through or whatever, and somehow gets a hold of her and
Correct.
gets her out of it. Is that
Yes.
pretty
Yes.
much
That's
what
pretty
happened?
much what happened. Yeah. Un soldato che ti ha preso dalla mano. Quando ti ha portato fuori, che ha fatto?
Aspettava la famiglia,
So
aspettava, si calmava
she
tutto.
remembers that when the army guy grabbed her by the hand, he stayed with her until her family found her.
Did he talk to her at all, or did he
Lui
try and
parlava
comfort
con te?
her?
No, non è che tu sapevo inglese,
No,
ma
no.
parlava con te?
Poco, non mi ricordo che diceva.
She remembers very little about what he said, but they couldn't communicate with each other because
Right.
she didn't know English, of course.
Yeah.
And I doubt they knew a lot of Italian.
Yeah. And so was she hurt? Was she
Ha
injured?
detto, quando Gesù ti ha tirato fuori, ti sentivi malamente, che una cosa ti ha fatto male o per miracoli niente?
No, meno male non ho fatto niente. Giusto aveva paura perché mi ha buttato come si chiama, i muri. Come si chiamano i pezzi di muri, no?
Yeah, she said pieces of the wall went over her, but by a miracle,
No injury.
she had no injuries. It was like a miracle. It was
Giusto
like-
mia mamma sa.
just her mother, of course, had the bomb fragment on her leg, but
Yeah.
but she did not get injured by a miracle when things went over. She remembers seeing chunks of the building that were over her, so it must have been maybe the angle or whatever happened that it was like a miracle. She didn't get injured. Yeah, so that was a blessing.
Yeah.
Certainly was, yeah. So then did she, I guess, went back to her
Well, she was saying that she stayed. The military man stayed with her until he saw that the family members
Were-
saw her,
Oh,
and then
okay.
took her back home. Yeah.
And
E dopo aspettavo che ci davano mangiare.
Then they waited because they had no food, no nothing. And che ti ricordi di americani ti hanno dato mangiare?
Gli americani
The,
aiutavano.
the Americans later gave them food rations.
Yeah.
Food
No,
rations,
prima
yeah.
andavano a raccogliere a cicoria.
And they also, she remembers,
Prima che ci davano
eating
mangiare.
dandelions and things like that to survive. Yeah.
does she remember, was there any fighting on the ground in her area?
Yeah, tu
that
ti
she-
ricordi se ci stavano, like the Germans you're saying?
Yeah, like the Germans
And they-
when they
okay.
came in, were the Germans and Americans fighting?
Yeah, quando stavano
fire?
tutti i militari là, quei germanesi, italiani, se litigavano o non ci stava una grande guerra vicino?
No, non ci stavano.
There was no large wars or fighting
So she
in
didn't
her
hear
area.
any,
Ah,
other
stava-
than the bombing, she didn't hear
Solo i
any
bombardamenti
shooting
e
or
basta,
anything.
no?
Fermati,
Non che sparavano i cannoni, niente,
no,
solo,
no,
just
just
bombings.
bombings.
Just bombings.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
E dopo ci hanno dato mangiare con le tessere.
They would give them come una carta.
Yeah.
They would give them like a paper for the food rations, and then they would have to show them the paper.
Yeah, si fa mangiare.
And so everybody got portion food to survive.
Yeah, mi ricordo.
and some of the older kids, they had jobs, did they?
Quelli più vecchi tenevano i lavori, tuoi fratelli.
Yeah, mia sorella lavorava alla posta.
Her older sister worked at the
E
post
e
office,
due lavoravano all'ufficio.
and
Mio fratello.
two of her older brothers were working in an office.
Una sorella, due sorelle e mio fratello, perché l'altro è più giovane.
Okay. Yeah, just the older ones were working in an office, and then her older sister worked at the post office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does she remember when the war was over in 1945, I guess around April or something like that?
Yeah, la guerra quando è finita, aprile 25, tu ti ricordi quando è cominciata a finire? Che succedeva con la famiglia tua? Quando
Dopo un periodo, per poco tempo, l'ho poi fermato.
ha
Non mi
fermato
ricordo.
dopo? She feels that not long after the war was coming to the end, so
Yes.
everything happened like fast, like, the bombing, and then the war was coming to the end.
Yeah.
So it must have been towards more the end of it.
Yeah, it was. And,
Wow.
Yeah, and yeah.
Ce l'ho detto, mia mamma cuciva i vestiti
Yeah, her
militari.
mother was sewing military outfits
i
for the
panni.
Italian military. That was her
Yeah.
job. A lot of citizens took over these different positions, and her mother sewed a lot of uniforms. Tanti.
Mi ricordo.
Yeah, that was her.
Did she help her mom?
Tu aiutava tua mamma un po'?
Eh?
Tu aiutava un poco tua mamma?
No, giusto lì contava quando era.
She would count.
Pile.
She would count the piles of how many things were
Yeah,
finished.
finished,
So she was in charge of counting how many uniforms were
Perché
finished.
era piccola.
Yeah.
What color were the uniforms?
Tu ti ricordi il colore?
Sì, erano verdini mischiati.
Like a light green.
light, dark, yeah, mix. Yeah, mi
Mixed.
ricordo. Pile. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. E I soldati portavano sopra.
Oh, the soldiers, the Italian
bring up-
soldiers would bring all the fabrics that were pre-cut, ready to be sewn.
Oh.
Erano già tagliati, mi
Yeah,
ricordo.
they were already cut, and they would bring them up to where her mother was, and then they would say, here's another bundle for you to do.
That would be in her house.
In la tua casa, no?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, at her house. Yeah, and she had a machine. Teneva la machine.
No, elettrica a pedale.
It was a pedal. Oh my gosh, it was a pedal sewing machine.
Lavorava notte e giorno, mia
Not
mamma.
electricity. She said day and night she was working. Day
Yeah.
and night. Day and
Yeah.
night. Wow.
Aiutava i soldati. Yeah.
And she got paid for that, I must
Ti
say.
pagavano sicuramente qualche
Non mi
cosa.
ricordo se farà volontiero, non lo
She
so.
doesn't remember whether it's volunteer or they got paid.
Yeah.
Non credo che la pagavano.
She thinks
Faceva-
she thinks that the government wouldn't pay. You have to volunteer for your country. You know, so
So, so the war, okay, now the war is over,
yes.
and does she go to school, or 'cause
Dopo
she's
la
like
guerra-
12, 13 years old now?
Ecco, quando tu tenevi diciamo 13 anni dopo la guerra, tu hai cominciato a fare la scuola o lavorava alla casa?
Andavo a scuola e dopo lavoravo un po'. Mia mamma mi insegnava a ricamare.
Okay, so she would do a little
E
bit of
cucinavo.
she was
Andavo a
doing
cucinare.
schooling, and at the same time her mom was teaching her how to do embroidery work and also how to cook. You know how to cook.
E cucinavo assai.
She was cooking a lot.
So at that time, what did she want to be when she grew up?
Quando tu ti stava a crescere, che tu pensavi nel tuo cervello tuo, perché tu, hai visto come tu tenevi fratelli che lavoravano in ufficio, sorelle che erano dalla posta, che volevi fare tu nel tuo cervello tuo?
No, giusto stavo a casa, mi piaceva di ricamare.
She
E
just
lavorare
loved to
in ferro.
embroidery, and
Ricamava i
she
ferri.
wasn't really thinking of like having a position somewhere like her.
Aiutava mia mamma a cucinare.
And she was helping her
a
mom
lavare i
a lot.
panni.
And cleaning and doing laundry, and
Lavava
she
i
loved
panni.
doing housework.
Lavava i panni con i mani.
Yeah, and
The machine.
they washed all the clothes by hand in those days. Yeah, tu
It's
andavi
like
fuori?
on a
No, no,
board
fuori,
kind of-
no.
It was inside.
They-
It was inside, and they would do it all by hand.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, a washboard.
Yeah,
I mean,
no coso di legno che tu lavavi. Yeah, the washboard. Yeah,
I remember that.
the washboard.
Di legno era.
Yeah, it was
mi
wood.
ricordo.
It was very good.
Yeah.
But she loved it. Really, she just said she loved doing all the housework and helping her mom a lot.
E io e mia sorella stavamo a casa, Carmelina.
Her and her sister Carmelina
E
were
l'altra
staying home,
lavoravano
and everybody
all'ufficio.
else was working in offices, and so they did all the housework.
And
for
did she have lots of boyfriends?
Tu tenevi assai che maschi che tu andavi fuori?
No,
Her father was very strict.
don't believe
mio padre. E noi mangiavamo alle 2 quando arrivava mio padre.
At 2 o'clock, they would have their lunch, and they all waited until the father came home.
Sì,
So everybody ate together, right? 12?
alle 2.
All 12.
Alle 2. Alle 2.
And at 2 o'clock was their lunch.
Quando
So it
mio
was like the
padre
12
veniva-
apostles. They would all sit down, wait
Yeah.
for the father to come home, and then they all ate lunch together. Wow.
Sì. C'avevamo
Need a
rispetto
little
per
more
la
of that
famiglia.
these days, don't we?
Yeah, things have changed a lot. Families were more united.
Prima stavamo tutti insieme, ne mangiavamo assieme, tutto uguale.
Yeah.
Did her grandparents live with them?
I tuoi nonni abitavano con te? Or
No.
No,
No,
non abitavano con te. No, they did not.
But
Non mi
usually,
ricordo, non l'ho viste mai.
Yeah,
I mean,
one of the family members, takes them
usually
over.
I was just
Yeah,
wondering
perché-
were they still alive, her grandparents?
Erano ancora vivi danno quando tu stavi crescendo i nonni? Come
No.
No. They were not alive during
Oh,
that
okay.
time. Okay.
Yeah,
No, non l'ho viste.
yeah.
Yeah.
So now, did you ever think about leaving Italy when she was younger and wanting
Yeah,
to
quando
go
tu
to
eri
Italy?
più giovane, tu potevi mai immaginare che tu partivi dall'Italia o pensavi che
No.
tu eri cresciuto in Italia sempre?
No, pensavo
Stavi per la
stessi a
vita.
casa con la
Yeah, she always
famiglia.
imagined she was going to live in Italy forever.
Con mia mamma,
Yeah, with her and stay with
E
her
mia
family.
sorella.
And her sisters, yeah.
Gli altri fratelli sono partiti. in America, sono sposati americani.
The other brothers married American girls in Italy and then left to the United States. Tuo padre che diceva, mi ricordo,
Sposati americani.
her father would tell the boys, find yourself an American girl, because they were doing schooling, right? Facevano la classe in Italia.
Sì.
They would have American girls coming to Italy to study maybe Italian or universities, and so the father begged all the male kids, find yourself an American girl and go have a different life in America. Yeah, so he was putting a lot of pressure to them, and that's what they did. My uncle Sal got married to an American girl.
Gianni.
Uncle John got married to an
Uncle
American
Tony.
girl. Uncle Tony,
Yeah.
the older one, got married to an American girl, and then they all went to America.
So this was even before the war or after?
No,
the
no,
war?
after the war.
Oh, after the war.
Dopo la guerra.
Dopo la guerra,
After the
sì.
war.
After the war.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, and so because of economic
I'm
reasons
sure era perché
primarily?
l'Italia stava ancora povera.
Yeah.
There was no opportunities, no jobs, so the father figured, you know what, have a better life if you go to America. Yeah. No.
Did she do any travel? Did the family did she ever go to Rome or?
Yeah, quando tu stavi in Italia, stavi solo a Cosenza o andavi pure in giro a vedere
No,
altre parti
no.
dell'Italia come Roma? Tu non hai
No,
mai visto Roma?
no.
Non hai mai
A Cosenza stava a casa.
Yeah, ma tua sorella è andata a Roma però. Una
No, ma dopo
sorella.
che si è sposata.
Oh, okay. She's saying the family pretty much stayed all knit very tight in Cosenza. The only one that after she got married, one of her sisters went to Rome.
Okay, I guess what I wanted to know, did they take a trip to Rome? And her
Tu hai mai
did
fatto
she
un
ever
viaggio,
take a trip
vacanza
to
a
Rome?
Roma? No.
Or
Nessuno
nothing
fa.
like that. They always just
Never.
stayed
They
around.
would just
casa.
they just stayed home,
Stayed around
stayed
that-
put.
that
Yeah.
town.
Yeah.
Okay. So when did she actually go anywhere besides?
Yeah, quando tu hai partito di Cosenza, quando era la prima volta quando sei andata a Minturno? La prima? I figured it. Yeah, the only time she left Cosenza, Calabria, is when she went to Minturno, which from Calabria is about, let me see, quando
Un'ora di treno.
about an hour train going north towards Rome, and then you have the province of Latina, and that's where Minturno is, where she took care of her sister's children, 7 children.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Okay, what happened was one of her sisters had.
Ha scritto a mia mamma
Ah,
e voleva aiuto.
her sister wrote to her mother saying, please, I need Lena to come and help me take care of my 7 children because I can't handle the family, it's too big. And I need her to come and take care of the kids in Minturno. She had property in this little town called Minturno in the province of Latina. And so she wrote to the mother, and the mother says, you have to go help your sister. You got to go help your sister raise these kids. And she did that for 5 years in Minturno, in this little town.
E aiutava.
Yeah. That was
Ecco, sì.
Are those kids still around, or did you have any contact with them?
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually saw them this summer. One of my cousins, she's handicapped. She's in a wheelchair,
Yeah.
and she's 74 or 75. So we got to see some of these children, my cousins, that she took care of. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they used to call her Mama. They used to call her Mama because that was the first mother that they would see when they were growing up.
Erano 10 tutti insieme.
It was a total of 10 in this like an apartment on the second floor. I think it's second floor. Yeah, second floor. I've been to that building before too, and so there was a total of 10, and the quarters weren't that big. Quanto camere da letto ci stavano?
3.
Three bedrooms for 10 people. That's pretty tight.
Erano stretti.
Yeah. And one restroom, I believe. One restroom. Very tight.
Non come adesso.
Yeah, it's not like nowadays. Everybody has their own bathroom. But And it was for
5 anni.
5 years she did that. Yeah.
Yeah. E andava a fare la spesa e cucinava, lavava i
Right.
panni.
And this is interesting because I remember just before one of my cousins passed away this year actually. But when he was alive and we saw him 5 years ago, he said, I used to wet the bed just to get attention from your mom.
Oh.
And my mother would have to get the mattress and put it on the balcony. And those mattresses were heavy back then to just dry it out. You know, and he goes, I did this on purpose. I wanted your mother's attention.
Ci dava le botte.
And she would, you know, spank him. Spank him.
Curioso, sì.
Wow.
Come adesso.
Yeah.
So she did that for 5 years,
For
and then what,
5
did
years.
she go back home or what?
Well, during that time when she was there, c'è dice la verità, incontrato lui.
Ecco.
And during that time, she met her
Perché andava a fare la
future.
spesa.
Yeah, she would go do
Guardato
groceries for the kids and the family,
Yeah.
and so that's how she met her husband to be, and then later when it was time for her to go back to Calabria.
Perché se mio fratello di Chicago ha mandato 3 bambine a Cosenza e la vede guardare io.
Oh, it gets better. I didn't know this. She had to go back after 5 years. She went back to Cosenza to take care of 3 of her.
My brother, mio fratello di Chicago.
Her brother from Chicago. It was the twins.
Gemelle
Anna and Lorraine. They were twins. Oh my gosh.
e Rosalba.
And Rosalba. Yeah, 2 twins and the sister. Well, there were 3 sisters. 2
Yeah.
of them were twins. This was Uncle Tony's children. Okay, her
Perché la
older.
moglie aveva andato a lavorare.
Her oldest brother, the wife wanted to go work, but she didn't want to take care of the kids, so they sent them to Italy because they knew she was a great babysitter or nanny. Because she heard it from her other sister saying, "Oh, Lina
Guardate,
took
per
care
poco
of."
tempo però.
Quanto? 1 anno, 2
No,
anni?
poco perché era fidanzata dopo.
Oh, okay. As she was doing this, in the back of her mind, she's probably thinking, "Oh my God, am I going to do this for another 5 years?" But because she was engaged to get married, it was for a short time. So that's kind of saved her in one
Yeah,
respect.
7-8 mesi.
8 months, again, she's 7-8 months. She was doing this, and then I remember tu hai messo pressione che devi sposare, right?
Ah, subito.
So her husband, well, husband to be, said, put a lot of pressure. We got to get married. We got to get married. We got to get married because.
Aveva paura che lasciavo.
Yeah, she was afraid she was going to leave him. You know, like so marry in this way you guarantee everything. But at the same time, I remember she told me that my father, he had a sister in Toronto, Canada, and they were working on paperwork to immigrate to Canada rather than the United States.
Oh.
And so that's why there was a lot of pressure. Infatti, lo stesso giorno qualcuno si stava sposando.
Ha detto bugia, che sposava la sorella, è venuto solo. Lui.
Oh my gosh! So
Ha passato una cosa
that's okay.
incredibile.
So that the day that she was getting married in Calabria, in
lui è venuto
Calabria,
solo.
he came by himself. He didn't bring his mother and father because he told their family that his sister was getting married the same day,
Similar day.
which later
Oh,
we found out it was not true. Oh my gosh.
e mio padre credeva, mia
So
famiglia.
her father believed what his future son-in-law was telling him. I got to get married now because my sister's getting married, but I want to get married today because we got to go to Canada. We got to go to Canada. So that's what happened.
Now, those 3 kids that came from Chicago, I assume they spoke English?
Parlavano inglese quelli?
I bambini?
Bambino no.
No, erano piccoli.
They were still too young. So
erano
they,
piccoli.
She
yeah,
didn't
they were
really-
very, very young.
E poi dopo i parenti parlavano sempre italiano.
The mother and father would always speak Italian to them.
Yeah.
So
Anyhow, yeah.
In Chicago.
Yeah, in Chicago.
But did
yeah.
she, were there any English-speaking people around, or did she have English in school, or
Yeah,
did
tu hai mai insegnato la lingua inglese in Italia?
No.
Quando stava là? No.
No English in
No
school?
English.
Adesso
They
insegnano, prima no.
Well, see, in those days, it's true. In those days, they didn't teach English in school.
Okay.
But nowadays it's all the opposite.
Yeah,
English
yeah.
is the first one they want to teach you. Yeah,
Yeah,
almost.
yeah.
Yeah, it's all changed.
Okay. So when she got married, so who, what was your father's name or her husband's? Her
Was
husband's name?
Giuseppe D'Agostino
Giuseppe,
was his
okay.
name. Yeah.
Giuseppe, is that in English? What would that be?
Joseph? Come si
Come?
chiama? Giuseppe come Joseph?
Yeah, just
Like Joseph.
Like Joseph.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like, okay.
Yeah.
So did they go to Toronto then?
Dopo che anno quando tu sei andata a Toronto? 1950?
60.
1960, they immigrated to Canada.
Ho 59 sono sposata.
Oh, the 1959 she got married in
Okay.
Italy in
E sono
in
stata un
Cosenza.
anno a un paese solo.
Oh, she stayed 1 year. Oh my
With 10
gosh.
people, 10
One-
persone.
No, un anno alla casa di lui.
Ah, alla casa della mamma.
She stayed 1 year at her mother-in-law's house
Because
in
per
Minturno
cartamento-
because they were waiting for the documents
I see.
from Canada so they can go, legally over.
E lavorava con una cavallo.
And she worked like a horse because he had a. Quanto della famiglia? My father had.
Più di 10 eravamo.
Well, the total was more than 10. So she had to cook for everybody. She had to clean the laundry. She did everything. Oh my gosh.
Ho lavorato forte.
She worked when she was young. She worked really hard.
Yes.
So and she was about 26, 27 then, I
Quanti
guess?
anni tu tenevi? 25, no?
Sì.
It's 25, I believe she was 25 years old
Okay.
at the time.
Yeah.
So when she got to Toronto, did she like, what did she,
Tu ti piaceva quando è arrivata in Toronto?
No.
No, she didn't like it.
Specialmente d'inverno.
I guess that she said, you got in the wintertime, d'inverno?
Uh-huh.
They got there in the wintertime.
Yeah.
So that's going to be real cold.
E andavano appartamento a un appartamento.
And so in the beginning, they went from apartment to apartment to apartment. In the
Non so come
beginning,
già dal matto.
she was wondering how she didn't go crazy.
I went, yeah, tell me about the weather where she grew up in
Quando tu
Calabria.
sei nata a Calabria, che è la differenza, diciamo, della temperatura Cosenza confronto a Toronto?
Madonna che grande
That's a
differenza.
huge difference because, and I know what she's going to say.
In Calabria pioveva, però d'estate era
In the
bello.
wintertime in Calabria it would rain, but the weather is not like Toronto.
No.
Toronto's like, snow and ice. And
I meant to ask you, how far from the ocean or from the sea was Calabria?
do mare Cosenza quanto tempo per andare a mare? Una mezz'ora?
No, a Paola andavo.
No, ma quanto tempo con la macchina, diciamo? 15
No,
minuti?
sono ore.
No,
A Cosenza.
no. A Cosenza per andare a Paolo è lontano,
Cioè-
maybe 40 minuti.
No, di più.
Un'ora.
Sì.
About an hour, 1 hour, and you'd go to the
Ma
ocean.
nessuno siamo andati a mare. No.
Would that be the Mediterranean? Or?
Yeah, and it was called Paola. Paola was the closest ocean that they would go to.
Did you ever go to it?
Tu mai andavi quando era piccola
No,
a
nessuno.
Paola? Mai.
No,
She
nessuno.
never remembers that when she was young she went to
Nessuno siamo
Paola.
andati a
They
mare.
never went to the
Never
ocean.
went to the ocean.
Wow.
No.
I know she went after, when
Yeah.
we would go vacation, but
Yeah, but never
not when she
before.
grew up.
Oh,
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
So did she or her husband have a job in Toronto when they got
Tu
there?
lavoravi in Toronto o solo lui?
No, io non ho mai lavorato.
Yeah, she was just a housewife because, of course, then she had later 5 kids, raising the kids, and he went to work.
Okay.
And
What kind
he
of work
was
did-
an auto mechanic,
Oh, okay.
and he used to work
Lavorava alla cucina. Io cucinavo tutti i giorni.
Yeah, she said I was working in the kitchen preparing like all the dishes and then
Right.
laundry and then on and on and on.
Oh.
But he later worked for GMC company that they would.
General Motors.
Yeah.
Okay. So how long or how many years did she live in Toronto? All told.
19 anni in Canada, a Toronto.
Quasi 20 anni.
Oh, yeah, it was 19 years, almost
19,
20 years
quasi.
in Toronto.
And then did she come to the United States then, or what?
Yes, in 1979, her brother, Uncle Frank,
Yeah.
her brother Frank sponsored because you have to do a whole process of
Living in
visa,
America.
and so you have to have not actually two of her brothers. My uncle Tony also sponsored, so they split it, and they did the sponsorship because you have to have guaranteed work. My dad had to have guaranteed work for so many years, and then everybody had to do. It was like a 5-year process it would take to get into the United States. X-rays, doctor visits, on and on and on. And then there's one final day where they decide yes or no if you're able to go with your family.
Now, her brothers that married American girls, what was the process like going for them? Do you have any idea?
Quando due fratelli che hanno sposati donne americane anni fa, era più facile per andare in America o confronto quello che avevamo passato noi?
Era fácil, certo.
It was a lot easier in those days that if you get married to an American,
Sure.
you just pretty much a hop, skip, and a jump, and you're over in the United States.
Right.
But you remember this process was
Yeah.
longer,
Right.
and that was we came legally in the United States in July 17th, 1979.
And when were you born?
I was born April 9th, 1963.
Okay.
And I remember she said I was a snow baby. It snowed that day, and I'm supposed to like snow. And it's the opposite. I'll run under that table if I see snow coming.
And you had brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I had my brother Dominic, the oldest one. Salvatore is the second. Then I'm in the center. And then there's Tony, and then there's my sister Anna Maria.
Cinque.
5.
And what did you kids do growing up?
In Canada, well, street hockey, playing in the streets. But my mother kept us busy. We were close. Later, we moved to an area called Scarborough, which is a city now. It's a little outside of Toronto. And we lived across the street from a public library. And later, my mom would take us over there, and she found out later the volunteers and workers there would say, if you bring your kids here on a Saturday, there are all these programs that these high school students and volunteer and show kids how to do things. Like clay animation, making Japanese kites. And so it opened up our minds. And so she knew that if she kept us busy, we'd stay out of trouble. So because of my mom, we got really finding out what we like to do, what we don't like to do, So it's kind of like keep us busy. And she always gave us chores to do. She would give us who has bathroom duty, who has the vacuum, who's going to go downstairs and clean the basement. Everybody had something to do. If we didn't, no allowance. Because in Canada, they used to have this thing called baby bonus. Every child that's born, the Canadian government would give a certain amount of money. It was not a huge amount for food, clothing, whatever, because they needed to grow the population. So my mom had said, I'll give you a little bit of allowance if you clean the bathrooms right. I remember I had bathroom duties and this and that. And so we learned as kids, in order to earn that money, you got to do something. You have to be responsible. And, so she really, her father, it comes from her mother and her father.
Yeah.
They were very right on, everyone's going to learn how to do this. Yeah, her parents raised her in a way to have responsibilities and earn. You have to earn your money, and it was a great way to grow up. Yeah, it was really good.
And did you go to Catholic schools?
In the beginning, I do remember we went to Catholic schools, but then I remember my dad said it was getting expensive because we had to buy separate books and this and that, and then eventually we went to public schools. Excuse me. Yeah, public.
And so you were like 16 when you came to the States?
I was 15.
15, okay.
Yeah.
So by this time, had you gotten interested in art and stuff like that?
Well, this is funny. It's almost like the story of my mom, because sometimes people will get into what they were meant to do in their life at a little later of a stage. So when we came to the United States, they did not allow certain credits from school in Canada over here. So it put me back, I don't know how many years. And finally, I started to realize it's best that I work. So my first job was working at Dunkin' Donuts. And after I was bringing boxes of donuts, Mama goes, no Dunkin' Donuts. So I quit that job and I got a job at Red Lobster near O'Hara Airport, where the pilots and the flight attendants was come. She goes, that one you can keep, because it was fish. And plus, I was cleaning tables, at 15, and I learned. I loved it. I loved it because I would hear things that the pilots would say as I'm cleaning tables that it was better than Days of Our Lives, better than the soap operas. I'm like, wow, you're learning what's going on about life. So
you came to Chicago. Is that the first place that you
Yeah,
came
the
from?
first place we came, because all her brothers were there, my uncles, was pretty much Des Plaines. She had her older brother there. And then in Niles, she had her younger brother was in Niles, Oaklawn, my Uncle Mario, and then Niles was her brother, the tenor, Uncle John. So they're all scattered all over, but we decided to stay in Des Plaines near O'Hara Airport because her older brother was there, and we stayed there 1 year. But then eventually the intentions was for the family to go to California to go get a climate closer to Italy weather. That was the intention, yeah.
And so did you come to California then? Or what?
Well, there was a little detour. My oldest brother, Dominic, had a friend in Chicago, and then they moved to Tucson, and then they started to look at areas in Arizona, and my brother told my dad, don't go to San Diego because the homes are too expensive. You better buy something in, he said Mesa, an area called Mesa. So my dad listened to him and he went to Mesa. They bought a home in Mesa, stayed 2 years. Realized it was very, very hot. But eventually, after those 2 years, he bought a house in San Diego.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, after that. So in 1982, we left Mesa, Arizona, and we went to San Diego.
Were you still in high school when you got to San Diego?
I did a little schooling. I was going to high school, but then I started to take art classes, and I was getting very, very high grades in the arts.
Dice ho lavorato alla scuola.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, my mom forgot that.
Ho lavorato alla cucina, ci aveva la licenza.
Yes.
Ho lavorato alla scuola in cucina.
Then my mother, during that time when we were in San Diego, she wanted to start being more of an independent woman, and she says, I want to get a job. So she got a job working
Però quella cosa sua.
Okay. Well,
Lui se no.
it was like pulling teeth because my dad didn't want her to go to work. But eventually she put her foot down and she said, I'm going to do what I want to do. So she went to San Carlo preschool and she worked at a preschool and she was preparing lunches. She got her food handler's license. I remember I went to help her get that to be the translator. And after 2 days of going to class and seeing movies about bacteria and this and that, she got her food handler's license. And then she started to work in the kitchen there. She was the head of the kitchen. They were
Ma erano maestri, non erano maestri.
yeah, preparing breakfast and lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did lunches for the kids and breakfasts and lunches for the kids.
Yeah.
But I remember he didn't want her to work. He was always nagging. You don't want to work there.
Quando
you know?
apriva la porta della cucina per girare l'aria, no? Hai visto lui? Che sta a fare?
Okay, so he would always stop by and take breaks and
No, dice salvo sta a girare con la macchina.
Yeah, I'm testing vehicles from the job, but she didn't like him always bothering her at the work. It's a long story.
So where in San Diego did you guys live?
We lived in it was near Lake Murray. It was between Navajo and Lake Murray Boulevard, I think.
Remember
in the Bashan Lake. The house was right on Bashan Lake. I remember it was a corner house.
Remember the address?
Oh, either 8. It was like 4 digits, something 8, something Bashan Lake, but it was a corner house. Mm-hmm. It was they're modest homes now. Of course, they went up like $1 million probably.
Yeah.
But it was a nice neighborhood, and she made a friend who actually came from Hawaii, a lady, Hilda Omby, but she got married but she came from the islands of Hawaii. That's how eventually how we ended up moving to Hawaii. So that's another story. But yeah, San Diego, they stayed in that house till 1990. From 1982, September 5th, we moved in there. 1982, and then in 1990, my dad wanted to go back to Arizona, and he picked Tucson to live in Tucson. And that didn't work out too good. Yeah.
Okay. And so when did you move to Hawaii then?
Well, after she separated in 1993, let's see, first we went to the 1994 was Washington. And after Washington, yeah, I'm trying to remember because there was a White House shooting. We were involved with this White House shooting. That another thing that, like, you know, like when your number's not called, this man started to shoot in front of the White. We're just a couple of yards away from him. Francisco Martin Duran in 1994 in October, he wanted to kill President Clinton. He's in jail for 40 years. But I had a video camera, and I caught some things.
You were visiting D.C.?
We were visiting D.C. because this National Italian American Foundation that we got involved with, they were presenting President Clinton with this sculpture that I made out of porcelain. But I decided with my mom, let's go in front of the White House and videotape so we could send it to Italy. Yeah. All of a sudden, boom, 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 this guy starts shooting, and I thought he was going to kill us. Oh. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then we ended up going on these talk shows like Phil Donahue and Sally Jesse Raphael years ago. We have tapes that will make you laugh. Wow. But it was an adventure. But I thought, nothing's going to kill us. We're like Italian cats with 9 lives, you know. Our numbers are...
So when you said you went to Washington, I was thinking the state of Washington.
Washington, D.C.
Okay.
It was Washington, D.C. Yeah, we were having dinner with the president in the evening, and I thought, I don't want to die before the dinner. You know, it's like a Last Supper. But what's funny is after the Secret Service, they checked, because I had a tuxedo, they checked us out and we went to dinner. This one gentleman comes right up to me and he goes, "Did you hear they tried to kill the president?" And of course I had 2 choices, either tell me we were right there, and they're the gunmen. And I said, "Oh, I didn't know. I didn't want to tell him." He says, he gave me his card. He goes, "I'm Sal DiMartino. I'm the commissioner on aging for the state of California, and they tried to kill the president." And I couldn't tell him that we were right there, but we were sitting at the same table. And later I wrote to him. He says, "I don't know how you kept your composure at the dinner, not telling us that you were like a couple yards away from this guy who almost killed people." Yeah. But anyways, with my videotape and a videotape of other people with the FBI and the Secret Service, they put him in jail for 40 years because he could have, if he turned around, we would have been dead. We wouldn't be sitting here because he had a semi-automatic weapon. But then you start learning that, and I told the Secret Service, you got to close the street off, Pennsylvania Avenue, shut it down. I told them, and they did after Oklahoma bombing. Then they shut it down because in Italy, any government building you go, there's jeeps with military, police, and dogs and machine guns. They're always ready for terrorists. But here it was a little bit more relaxing, you know, and then that happened. But that was
really something. So then from there you went to Hawaii? Is that
from there, I was telling my brother, you know, we've gone through a lot of... And my brother goes, "You should go to Maui," because they went to Maui for their honeymoon. And I said, "There's got to be a place that's more quiet with less action." He goes, "Go to Maui. Take Mom to Maui." So we moved to Maui. But first we went on vacation, went to all the islands to see what was... And because Maui had a hospital, because my mom has epilepsy, I said, well, I want to make sure that there's, you know, some medical thing. Sometimes people don't think of the medical, they last. You got to think about it first. So we went to Maui and we stayed first 2 years in Maui. It's a very expensive place. When you're on vacation, it's a whole different ballgame. But when you live there, there's another side to Hawaii with the history, and you feel it from the people, and they let you know. And then we went, after 2 years, my mom was, because my brothers can't always fly over there with the grandkids, and my brother goes, you guys are not just across the street. We got to get on a plane for 5.5 hours. So my mom goes, I miss the family. So we came back to California. We stayed another year, and then I asked my mom, I want to go back to Hawaii, because we moved up to LA. Big mistake. Because I was getting all these job opportunities up in Los Angeles and Hollywood. A lot of promises, but they all fell through. And then I said, I was so disappointed. I said, I want to go back to Hawaii. But Mama goes, no, you know what Hawaii's like. Why are we going to go? We went for another year, and then that was it. That was after a third year, I said, you know what? I'm not a surfer. You can only eat so much guava, papaya, mangoes, and coconuts. Let's get off this island. Because my brother came to the airport, and he realized I got fat. And he goes, oh, you look like a Samoan. I said, it's time to get off the island. So we came back to California. We have friends in Hawaii, but to visit is one thing, to live there is another. We have California blood. We've been here since 1982.
Did you come back to San Diego then?
San Diego. We lived there almost 30 years. Almost 30
what
years.
What part of San Diego?
Well, the first, again, near Lake Murray, and then later, when she became single, we went right across the street from the San Diego Zoo on Park Boulevard. Mm-hmm. It was a very nice neighborhood, but now it's a very expensive neighborhood. And sadly, when the cities get larger and larger and larger, it also brings larger problems. Traffic, more crime. In fact, the area that we lived in, it was beautiful, but then we heard that there was a murder with the Broderick. She killed her husband and his new girlfriend. It was a shooting. And then after that happened, then this gentleman that lived in this condo not far from us kills Versace in Florida, a murderer. And then after that, somebody stabbed this one guy where I used to have chocolate cake. And I said, Mama, we're in this Bermuda Triangle. They're murdering all these people. Well, let's get out of here. But then I volunteered for the city of San Diego, and we'd come bring seniors down here to Palm Springs to go see the Palm Springs Follies. Mm-hmm. At first I'm dragging my feet, then we fell in love with the show. Mama loved the temperature down here, and I go, what are we doing in San Diego fighting when we can live down here? It's quieter, peaceful. And we moved 2013, we came down here, no regrets. It's been 11 years, feels like 11 hours. I don't know where the time went. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So, what was the first time you ever came to Palm Springs? Is when you came down to the Follies, or had you ever been here before?
No. One time my cousin from Chicago was visiting San Diego. He knew about Palm Springs and I didn't. He goes, you're not far from Palm Springs. And I go, where's that? What is it? He goes, oh yeah, movie stars used to go there. So he, those days we got away. He was insisting to get in the back of my truck. I had a truck. And I said, this is not a good idea. He goes, no, let me go back there. But we took the 74. After the curves, then he's pounding on the glass, pull over. I said, Johnny, you wanted to go in the back. So put him in the front of the cab, and I said, it's scary with all those curves, So that's when I started to see it, and that was actually probably in the early 90s, probably seeing Palm Springs, mm-hmm. And of course if you go in the summer, it's pretty hot and dry. Mm-hmm. But then you get used to and acclimate with the weather, realize you don't want to be outside when it's 115 at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, unless you want to talk to a lizard or something. But it's a beautiful place.
And you live in Rancho Mirage now? Yes.
Actually, we first arrived in Rancho Mirage. We've lived in different parts of the Coachella Valley to find out where we ended up coming back to Rancho Mirage because we also lived in Sun City for a little bit. And then we realized we like it in Rancho Mirage. And right now we're in a nice little area. It's all 55 and over. It's quiet. It's a little bit older property. But the reason why we like it, we have a very simple lifestyle. And we like to be very private when we're home. we have our lunch group of friends of 45 people, and I say they're on the outside of the gates. When we want them, we'll either invite them to come, not all at one time, except on her 90th birthday. I surprised her, and we had between my brothers that came, one brother from San Francisco, my other brother San Diego, one brother was actually sick that day, couldn't come. We had 45 people in our unit, but I knew, you know how they got out the place, they took all the planes out, I took all the furniture and had all the chairs lined up on the walls. And my brother goes, I don't know, we've never had 45 people in our 5-bedroom home. And you have 5, and it was comfortable, everybody was comfortable. And so we surprised her 90th birthday, she had all her friends, and my brothers were outside on the patio, she didn't know. When she went out there, and we have videotape of this, and you can hear her screaming out there, like of happiness, happy joy, that my brother from San Francisco and his wife drove down. That's a lot of hours coming down. And they stayed at a hotel. But it was a good surprise. She didn't know nothing. But trying to hide things from her, it's like the FBI. Because she could smell if I brought, I had to have special things in my bedroom. Like, oh, Mama, don't go in there, it's a mess. And I was storing chairs and, non-perishable food when she wasn't watching. That was tough, getting deliveries at the door. What is it? You're ordering stuff on Amazon all the time. What's the matter with you? And we also invited, by the way, we used to do this once a year, have an open house and invite our local sheriff and police department. And we'd tell them we're going to be open for 5 hours or whatever. And we have Italian food, and they would some of them would stop by and get a piece of lasagna or whatever. And on her birthday, we invited, it was three sheriffs. 3 sheriffs came to respect, to honor my grandfather, her father. And so they came. But what's funny is one of the neighbors, she's like a Mrs. Kravis. Remember Bewitched? There was a character called Mrs. Kravis, and Abner! Something was always going wrong with the Bewitched house, and she's one of them. And I could hear her outside when one of our friends was coming. I was directing them how to park their car in my carport, and she's like, "You guys are making too much noise." And it was just people talking, no music. It was in the middle of the afternoon. She always complains about something. The manager doesn't like her. And all of a sudden, when the sheriffs come, she was like so happy. She probably thinks, somebody called the sheriffs, good. So later, the maintenance guy comes. He goes, "Are you guys having a problem? We saw 3 sheriffs. Are you guys okay?" I go, "Come on in." They go, "These are our guests." Oh, he goes, "I didn't know." I said, "Go tell Mrs. Kravis that the sheriffs are here because they're guests of ours, not because we're making too much. And I told the sheriff, "Excuse me, are we making too much noise?" He goes, "Are you kidding? You have no music. It's 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're just talking to people here." And he goes, "Tell Mrs. Kravis to mind her own business."
Do you still have family back in Chicago? Much?
Whoever's left is pretty much the cousins. We have my Johnny is my uncle that was a tenor, John, right. Uncle John. It's his 2 sons that actually went back because they left them this monster building. It's a huge property, and they weren't going to. At first, they were going to fight with lawyers, and my brother, I do thank my oldest brother to calm the 2 brothers down because they were going to sell it and fight. He says the lawyers are going to eat all the money. He says your parents worked hard for this property, so now they're both. One is on 1 floor, the other's, and then they rent out the 3rd floor. Mm-hmm. But they're, I don't know how many $1 million. Those homes are very expensive. Nice area, beautiful.
So much to
5 brothers have passed away.
5 Chicago.
5 in Chicago. She had all 5 brothers, plus your sister, Aunt Leah.
Huh?
Aunt Leah died in Chicago. They were all stuck together in Chicago, except for one of her sisters that was in Toronto.
Yeah.
And then she moved to an assisted living place because her husband died, and the home belonged to his kids. But he said, "I want you to stay in this house until you pass away." But she didn't want to. She goes, "I want to let the kids sell the house and split the money." And she went to an assisted living place, and she stayed there for like 5 or 6 years before she passed away.
When's the last time you guys were in Italy?
This past summer was beautiful. We got to see, again, my mom got to see especially the children that she raised. Yeah. Sadly, Umberto passed away before we went over there. Mm-hmm. So she got to see Fernanda, that she raised. Rita.
E Tonino.
Tonino was not there that day, Mama. Quando sono andata in Italia. He was in the hospital with his wife because his wife has illness now. But also Angeletta. We went to the institution where my cousin lives. It's like La Jolla. It's beautiful. Oh my God! If I was handicapped, I'd love to be right here, right near the ocean. And she gets to see all the cruise ships leave. It's a beautiful. My brother was like I forgot to tell you that her oldest son, my oldest brother, moved to Italy with his wife. They bought a 400-year-old home where my father's town is. Part of us are like, what are you thinking? They're not earthquake proof, let's put it that way. They were watching all these romantical shows on television now, how you buy a house for $1, but they paid $100,000 for this 400-year-old home. The Italians are raking in the money now for all these Americans that see the romantical side of Italy. They don't realize there's a political side about Italy. And at first he's sending all these photographs of food. Look at the mama goes, I don't want to see no more food. I know how to cook all this food. But it's like a kid in a candy store now. So my mother, my oldest brother, I'm getting off the beaten path. We were talking about Dominic for some reason. Oh no, my cousins that are still alive, sorry. He calmed down my two cousins, so they kept the house and all that. We were talking about something else, I'm sorry.
What I want to ask also, have you been on any cruises at all?
Well, she's a cruise bug. And you know what's interesting? I'll never forget this. The first ship that I remember, and I didn't realize when they came to Canada, they actually came by ship. And I found out this from, we became friends with Colin Robertson, who was the Canadian Consul General for Los Angeles in I think 2005. I think it was 2005. We became friends, and I was telling the whole story about my mom's life and everything. And he said, well, your mom qualifies for some money from Canada. I didn't know that. So we did the paperwork, but then he mentioned things that made her life a little bit better. Let's put it that way. But let's see, we were talking about...
quando siamo partiti in Canada con la nave.
Oh, well, so she came, her first trip was coming with a vessel because you have to find the documents in order to show or to prove to Canada that you can get benefits. You have to find the first vessel, how you came to Canada. And we found out through the documents, she came on a ship. It was a ship, I don't know the name of it, but we have the original documents like in a little safe. And so that was great. Then the second ship that they took to go to Italy, because at that time my dad wanted to go back to Italy. He didn't want to stay in Canada. This was 1950. No. I was born. I was 6 years old, so it was 1969. 1969. They took a train from Toronto to New York. New York. There were two sister ships. It was the Raffaello and the Michelangelo. These were two Italian line ships. They were advertising, in those days they would split up the first class and then second class. Not like today's, it's all mixed. So they left in January. Oh my gosh, as kids, as a 6-year-old, you remember we went over storms. One man died. He broke, they had a door that was made of glass, but it was not the breakable glass. So he died. There was storm. That's how bad the ship was rocking. I don't know how my mom took care of the...
Quattro.
We were 4. My sister wasn't born yet. On a ship.
Just io.
And she said, he disappeared and I had to take care of you guys. He disappeared and I had to... And we were sneaking into theaters, trying to watch movies. Then the guy with the flashlight, no, this is not a movie for kids. And he would kick us out. And my mom's like going crazy, Mamma mia. And in those days, they allowed you to throw the streamers. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, one of the guys that worked on the ship gave us a huge bag of these streamers. And then we went to the small town where my dad was from. And his mother, both parents owned 2 properties, one in the little older town, and one in the country. And the older town, they were in a third store on balcony. And we started to throw these streamers. We saw these little kids, Italian kids, coming, and we're there. They go, the Americans are throwing stuff from the balconies, you know. And it was just, and they would collect these streamers and they would roll them up and use them for like birthday parties. They recycled the streamers, but it was something else. Oh my gosh! Oh, on the ship. On the ship, my mom ordered this thing called orzata. It's extract, almond extract.
Yeah.
And it's like a white cloudy drink, but they mix it with water. It's very sweet. And she had it in, they used crystal glasses in those days on the ships. And I go, Mama, I want to taste some. So she gives me the glass, and I'm sipping it because I knew it was real sweet. But then for some reason, I don't know what made me do it. I start biting on the glass. It broke. The whole glass broke. And she's screaming, spit everything out. She thought I was going to swallow glass. I'll never forget that.
Poor Mama.
And then, that, and then I'll never forget there was a little girl with a beautiful pink dress, and they had this thing outside for kids to play where you hop on and you push, and I got sick, and everything went on her dress, and the mother's like, oh my gosh, she was European, I don't know what she was yelling. I said, oh my gosh, this is not a good day. But we were always sick. We were always sick on that ship because they didn't have stabilizers in those days, like rock and storms in January. Oh my gosh, that was horrible. Now this is why she's a cruise bug. I took her in 2014. Okay, I surprised her. I said, Mama, let's go on a cruise. She was all excited and everything. Then she goes, it was a 14-day Mediterranean from Barcelona. Then we went to France and this and that. Dubrovnik, Monte Carlo, all over the place. 14 days, beautiful, absolutely. Mama goes, I can live on a ship. Because going to the dining room, they first class and everything. But after this past summer, well, yeah, she goes, I don't have to cook. Because she's cooked all these years, so she likes to not cook now. But here's what's funny. And so I figured, okay, maybe we can... how can I say, silence out 45 days of the heat, and let's try do 45 days on ships. So the first ship was from New York, doing the Arctic Circle, 21 days, and then you get to Southampton. It was 30 degrees on our floor. We didn't know that they were going to open up the doors to let everybody go on sightseeing and stuff. Now, most of the people were from New York, not a lot of California people like us. This is what we brought. No jackets, because I thought the Arctic Circle, it's summertime, I bet it's going to be cool. Like 75, 80. Oh no, it was 30 degrees. And you know what saved us was the ship blankets. But we probably looked like the only two people, like homeless people on the ship. Because everybody kept on staring at us. Like, look at these people, they're like shivering like this. Because they would keep those doors open pretty much the whole day. That the people, because you can come and go out and in, out and in. The only warmest place was up in the Lido, where the buffet was. So we spent more time looking for the windows and seeing all these people go on buses, and seeing, like, you could see this frost. Like, I don't want to be out there. Mama goes, I shoveled snow for over 20 years in Canada, almost 20 years in Canada. You think I want to go there? So that was then when we got to Southampton, we hopped on a plane to Rome, and we decided to spend 2 days before our other cruise. So 2 days with our family. That was beautiful. I saw my oldest brother there. Very humid, and your body, because we're so used to this dry air. That's what happens when you're traveling. The downfall is we're spoiled here. So the 30 degrees, we did not do good. Mama goes, I don't want to see no more Arctic Circle. And I go, but Mama, they gave us a certificate. You survived.
No.
I don't care what kind of certificate. I said, but not many people have this. She goes, I don't care. So when we got on the second cruise, of course, that was leaving Rome, Civitavecchia. Some areas of Italy that we haven't been, like Portofino. So that was beautiful. And then it went Croatia. We've done Croatia before. It's a place that we've been to, she doesn't get off the ship. And then we went to Corfu, then Greece and Istanbul and Turkey. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But then later she realized by the second cruise, it was another 21 days. She goes, I don't think I want to live on a ship anymore. Because she misses her pillow, she misses her bed, she misses the neighborhood. She goes, now I want to go small cruises, small and closer. And I go, okay. So we scheduled one next October, if all goes well, leaving San Diego, going to Santa Barbara, Catalina. We've been to Santa Barbara, but we haven't been to Catalina. And then going up to, coming back and going to Ensenada. And we have actually part of our lunch group, we have now 14 people going with us, all friends that we've known for 11 years. That when they heard us going, they go, can we come? I go, sure. So we're going as a group,
cool.
Which is nice. And but now she wants shorter. This is a 4-day cruise. She likes shorter, no more than a week. She doesn't want to do these 21 days. And plus, there's a lot of things that you're tempted, because then you end up, even though you think, oh, I'm not going to eat that much, you end up eating more. And you say, oh, but look at over here. Look what's here. Mama goes, let me taste that. Have you been on cruises?
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
No, then you know.
We know.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think the first time we met you was last month at the Air Museum at that program we had. And I know she got to meet Tony Orlando, and he sang to us, and so I think we all had a pretty good time there.
Yes. And it all happened because of Dorothy and Marie.
Yes.
And we're praying, because I know the last time she's home recovering,
Yeah.
and so we're praying for her recovery, because I know her mother misses Mizell, going to Mizell, because they like to go to the live music.
Yeah.
So.
Have you still been going to the Mizell?
Oh yeah, she continues to go, but it's not the same when Dorothy and Marie would stop by.
Yeah.
What do you usually do at the Mizell when you go over there?
Well, now I used to volunteer some years back in the dining room serving, but what I didn't tell you is I actually have a spinal condition where the bones are growing in the nerves. So as I'm talking to you, today is about a 7. It's a calm day. So 7 is a calm day. The bad days is when I get a 9. Now, I've gone to see surgeons because they wanted to do immediate surgery. This was 14 years ago. But the last surgeon I saw was from Japan. He said, we cut you, you're going to be back on the board. Every 2 years we're going to have to cut your bones because they grow back. So he even recommended not to take pills. And now some people say, you're getting this pain because you're heavy. No, because when I was 100 pounds less than I am now, one time I collapsed in the shower. The nerves got tangled, I don't know what happened, pinched. Paramedics had to give me morphine. So I live with this constant condition, and I'm not going to have the surgery because chances you can become paralyzed, and I don't want to be in a wheelchair because I'm taking care of her. So I live with it, and just about a month ago, they put me on these pain opioids, and if it wasn't for my mom, I probably wouldn't have waken up. She was screaming and I didn't hear anything. She was screaming and screaming, and she had to shake my body, and I fell asleep watching television, but it was such a deep trance, and I go, Mama, where am I? And then I knew that the pills are dangerous. So I told my doctor, I don't want to see no more pain. This is how people die. Overdose. Wonderful. Yeah, sono finiti.
Okay, but before we do, any parting thoughts?
Well, we're very grateful for everybody here, and you and your wife, and the honor. And I hope we can be utilized, especially for myself, maybe to volunteer and do more things for everybody. The museum. It's a great museum.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You.
Natalina, thank you so much for
Oh, you're
coming
welcome.
and joining us.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
having me.
you've
Thank
had
you
a
very
wonderful life, and
Thank you. Yes.
thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for bringing her
Thank
in, Claudia. I really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
You're welcome.
Okay.
You're welcome.
It was
Thank you.
wonderful. Okay.